Begin this news hour in the United States, where millions of people are voting in midterm elections that will determine the rest of Joe Biden's presidency. Control of both houses of Congress is at stake. Polls suggest that Republicans are poised to take control of the House of Representatives. If they do, they'll attempt to block nearly every piece of legislation proposed by President Biden in his remaining 2 years in office. Which party will control the Senate appears too close to call. More than 43.5 million people have already cast their ballots in early voting. Also up for election are 36 state governors and other local officials. These are the people who will oversee the next presidential election, including, if they win, a number of Republican candidates who have cast doubt on the 2020 result. Donald Trump has been dropping heavy hints that he may run for president again. On Monday night, President Biden and Mr. Trump made a last-ditch appeal to voters.
Today we face an inflection point, one of those moments that comes around every 3 or 4 generations. We know in our bones that our democracy is at risk, and we know that this is your moment to defend it, preserve it, protect it, choose it.
This is the year we're going to take back the House, we're going to take back the Senate, and we're going to take back America. And in 2024, most importantly, we are going to take back our magnificent White House.
Donald Trump and before him Joe Biden. Well, for the very latest, we can cross live to the U.S. state of Florida and speak to Arise correspondent Dan Warren, who is in Orlando. Great to see you, Dan. So essentially a mini referendum on the presidency of Joe Biden. Congress is at stake. How's it going there in Florida where you are? What's it looking like?
For the last 2 weeks, visiting various states, including Pennsylvania, which is very much on the map tonight, as well as North Carolina, South Carolina, and here in Florida. And it's very much, as you said, a referendum on President Biden's policy and his agenda so far. What is interesting is turnout for early voting is already exceeded the last midterm elections, which was in 2018. That has been seen by the Democrats as something positive to hold on to, mainly because their fan base or their voting base generally come out to the polls in advance if they can. But the fact is, as you said, I'm here in Florida, which is home to the some of the world's biggest roller coasters. And I think the next 12 hours is certainly going to be a roller coaster in some of these key states for the Senate. As you said, it's quite likely that Republicans will take the House of Representatives. It's quite normal during midterms for the government of the day to get a bit of a bashing and see the House flip over. But it's the key Senate races, and some are just so close to call. We've been told that the lawyers from both sides are already on alert. They're already talking about contesting for ballots that haven't even been cast yet. And quite frankly, the public opinion at the moment is they just want these elections to get out of the way. So much money, obscene amounts of money has been spent on them. And rather than saying what they want to do, people want to see action. The landscape from 4 years ago, where it was Donald Trump's referendum, if you like, has completely changed with the war in Ukraine and the global economy. People just really want to see action. And some people feel that their vote isn't even matter. The amount of people that I've been speaking to, and I would say a very 50-50 mix from Republicans and Democrats, are just saying, well, does it matter? It's down to a few key states and potentially lawyers. And they almost feel embarrassed that once again, America, an election and a political system that is seen as a jewel in a crown around the world could once again end up in litigation and legal disputes.
Well, that's a very important point that you make there. And if we have the time, I'd like to explore that last bit a little bit more. But both the parties and the electorate appear to be deeply split on the issues. I mean, I saw one poll that suggested that a majority of voters would prefer the Republicans for issues like immigration and the economy, but the same poll found that voters prefer Democrats to address climate change and abortion. So the divide appears to be unusually stark.
Yes, and in a strange way, no matter what happens out from tonight's results, we could end up seeing a lot more of the compromises where Republicans put their key policies on issues, as you said, such as the economy and immigration, and then climate change and women's rights could be brought in by the Democrats, because if the House, as expected, goes to Republicans tomorrow, we will see President Biden having to basically sit down, and it is no longer about power, it is about the policy then. And if the Senate also goes to the Republicans, which is possible, then the president has the right to veto any decisions that basically both houses make, which is, unorthodox. And certainly, I don't think President Biden is the type of president that would do that. They're going to have to sit around the negotiating table. So what you could see is basically key legislative points from both sides being put on the table. And it's a case of acting like grown-ups. President Biden has been in politics now well over 50 years. He's certainly seen as one of the grown-ups in the room. So it could be a very interesting outcome for the Americans.
And let's quickly turn to that issue that you raised earlier, Dan, about the questions that might arise, because in recent days we've seen election deniers and conservative activists warning that delays in counting mean that fraud is happening, or that ballot boxes are being stuffed, which is the sort of rabble that we saw in the run-up to the 2020 election. But delays are, of course, an inevitable part of the process. Will America, in your assessment, end up with something like what happened on January the 6th, 2021?
There is extreme concern over that, and I think it is. You can't rule anything out, but at the moment, all polling stations that are opened, just watching all of the news wires a few moments ago, are saying it seems to be all quiet on the Western Front. But it's a case of if people are being perceived to have been cheated. And as you talk about election deniers, there's over 300 candidates on the ballot today that still don't believe in the results of 2020, and that rhetoric could certainly be dangerous if it seems, for example, the Senate could remain in Democratic hands because of too many close call ballots in for example, a state like Pennsylvania. The likelihood is, I think, the Democrats are certainly trying to put on that, we can organize elections and we will respect democracy, but they are in effect worried what traditional Republicans may feel. In fact, I've spoken to so many people that are generally Republican staunch members that have said that they do not agree. They still believe President Trump should be the president. They believe that President Biden basically has hijacked the White House. And it is very alarming that 2 years on from the 2020 election, that has not been put to bed. And as we've seen over the last week, the former president still remaining with that rhetoric. But all being well at the moment, it does look like that there is no potential scenes that we saw on the January the 6th last year.
Dan, thanks very much indeed. Keep us posted. Dan Warren, Arise correspondent, talking to me there from Orlando in the US state of Florida.